I thought I'd never love again. Then I did. And that's when she called. The divorce papers were signed on a Tuesday morning. No courtroom drama, no last minute reconciliations, just a notary, two pens, and the hollow click of my wedding band on the laminate table before I walked out into the parking lot. The late autumn air smelled like damp concrete and exhaust, and I remember thinking how strange it was that the world kept moving when mine had just split in two. For the first few months, I functioned on autopilot. I went to work, nodded through meetings, and came home to a house that no longer felt like mine. The silence was the worst part. After 22 years of marriage, you get used to the rhythm of another person. The hum of the coffee maker at 6:15 a.m., the way she'd sigh when she was annoyed but didn't want to argue. Now, there was only the refrigerator's dull drone, and the occasional creak of the house settling, like it too, was unsure of its new emptiness. Friends tried to help. "You're still handsome for your age, Mike," my buddy Greg told me over a beer, clapping me on the shoulder like I was a project he could fix. Plenty of fish in the sea. So I let them set me up. Dinner with a divorced teacher, coffee with a widowed bookkeeper. They were nice women, smart women, but every conversation felt like acting. I'd nod and smile, ask the right questions, but my mind kept drifting to the past. The way she used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, or how she'd roll her eyes at my dumb jokes but laugh anyway. I wasn't the villain in our marriage, but I wasn't the hero either. We didn't end because of some explosive betrayal or screaming matches. We just stopped trying. Maybe that's the real tragedy, not the fights, but the slow erosion of effort. The way you stop asking how each other's day was because you assume you already know the answer. The way you go to bed angry, not because the argument was worth it, but because you're too tired to care anymore. One night, 6 months after the divorce, I found myself standing in the grocery store aisle, staring at two brands of toothpaste. She always bought the mint one. I hated mint. For some reason, that tiny decision, spearmint or wintergreen, felt impossible. I left the store empty-handed, got in my car, and sat there for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel like it might steady me. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just grieving her. I was grieving the man I used to be when I was with her. The one who knew what toothpaste to buy, who had someone to argue with about the thermostat, who belonged somewhere. Now, I was just a guy in a parking lot trying to remember how to want things again. Spring came, and with it, a shift I didn't expect. It started with small things. I joined a gym, not one of those intimidating places with mirrored walls and grunting bodybuilders, but a quiet rec center where men my age walked treadmills while watching CNN. At first, I just went to fill the hours, but then I noticed the changes, my shirts fitting looser, the ache in my knees fading, the way I could take the stairs without getting winded. It wasn't about looking good, it was about remembering what it felt like to inhabit my own body again. My sister, Linda, kept nudging me to get back out there. "You're not dead yet," she'd say, sliding a business card across the table at Sunday dinner. "This woman's a pharmacist, stable, nice smile." I'd pocket the card to make her happy, but I wasn't ready. Dating after divorce isn't like dating in your 20s. Back then, love was a question mark, thrilling in its uncertainty. Now, it's a math problem. You know exactly what can go wrong. Then, on an ordinary Wednesday, I met Dana. It happened at the coffee shop near my office, the one I'd been going to for years. She was 2 people ahead of me in line, wearing a navy blazer and wrestling with an overstuffed tote bag. When she turned to grab a napkin, her elbow caught my latte, sending it crashing to the floor. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she said, crouching to help mop up the mess with a wad of napkins. I knelt beside her, our fingers brushing over the spilled puddle, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed. Really laughed at the absurdity of it. She insisted on buying me a replacement. We ended up sharing a table when the shop got crowded. Dana was 54, divorced for 3 years, a financial planner who hated golf and loved old jazz records. She didn't ask about my ex, didn't probe for wounds. We just talked. About the terrible coffee, about her dachshund's obsession with socks, about how weird it was to be single at this age. "It's like everyone assumes you're either desperate or broken," she said, rolling her eyes. "Maybe I just like my own company." I left with her number scribbled on a napkin, cliché but true, and for days, I didn't call. Not because I wasn't interested, but because the fear crept in. What if I screw this up too? Love after divorce isn't like the first time. You know how much it costs now. You know how fragile it is. But then, on a whim, I texted her. One drink turned into dinner, turned into her kissing me goodnight in my driveway under a streetlight, her hand warm against my cheek. It was easy. Terrifyingly easy. And that's when my phone rang. Not Dana, her. My ex-wife's name flashed on the screen, and just like that, the past came rushing back. The phone vibrated against the kitchen counter, her name lighting up the screen like a flare in the dark. Karen. I hadn't heard from her in 9 months, not since the day we signed the papers. My thumb hovered over the answer button, my pulse loud in my ears. I picked up. Mike. Her voice was softer than I remembered. No anger, no edge, just Karen, the way she used to sound on Sunday mornings before the coffee kicked in. Hey, I said, gripping the phone too tight. This is unexpected. A pause, then a quiet exhale. I know, I wasn't sure if you'd answer. The familiarity of it all hit me like a punch to the ribs. The way she still knew my schedule well enough to call when I'd be home. The way I could picture her sitting at her kitchen table, one knee pulled up to her chest like she always did when she was nervous. I've been thinking, she said, about a lot of things. Outside, a car door slammed. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Normal life, moving on without us. Yeah? I forced myself to lean against the counter, to breathe. What kind of things? Another pause. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. I think I made a mistake. The words hung between us, heavy and fragile. I closed my eyes. Hearing her voice was like stepping on a landmine I forgot I'd buried. All those months of carefully packing away memories. Her laugh, the way she hummed off key in the shower, the scent of her perfume lingering on a scarf left behind, came rushing back in a wave. She kept talking before I could respond. Not about the divorce. That needed to happen. But the way I handled it. The things I didn't say. A shaky breath. I've been seeing someone, a therapist. It's made me realize, Karen. My voice came out rougher than I intended. Why now? Silence. Then, so quiet it barely registered. Because you're happy. The honesty of it stunned me. She continued, words tumbling out now. My sister saw you at the farmer's market last weekend with a woman. She said you were smiling, the way you used to. A bitter chuckle. I thought I'd be glad you moved on. Turns out I'm just human. I stared at the fridge, at the takeout menu Dana had stuck there with a magnet 2 nights ago. The one with her doodle in the corner, a lopsided heart next to try the pad thai. I don't know what you want me to say, I admitted. I don't either, Karen whispered. Maybe just that you'll have coffee with me. One time, no expectations. The clock on the microwave ticked. The ice maker rumbled. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked, the same one that always did when you stepped near the hall closet. Mike? I need to think about it, I said finally. She exhaled. Okay, that's fair. We hung up without goodbyes. I stood there for a long time, phone in hand, staring at Dana's number still saved in my recent calls. 2 lives pulling at me, one full of history, the other full of maybe, and no idea which one I was brave enough to choose. I didn't sleep that night. The digital clock on my bedside table blinked from 2:17 to 2:18 as I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan's slow rotation. Karen's voice kept replaying in my head. I think I made a mistake, each syllable sharp as broken glass. At dawn, I dragged myself to the kitchen and made coffee too strong, the bitter steam filling the silence. Dana's text came through at 7:02. Rain check tonight? Client emergency. Miss you. A heart emoji. Simple, uncomplicated. The kind of message that should have made me smile. Instead, I felt guilty. I spent the morning cleaning. Really cleaning. The way you do when you're avoiding your own thoughts. Windexed the windows, scrubbed the grout, even dusted the baseboards. Found Karen's favorite hairpin wedged behind the dresser, tarnished now, held it in my palm like a relic. By noon, I couldn't stand the house anymore. I drove to the lake where we used to take the kids when they were small. The picnic tables were the same green, the water just as murky near the reeds. A teenage couple shared ice cream, laughing too loud. I sat on our bench, the one with the initials we'd carved years ago, now weathered to faint scars. Who was I trying to fool? This wasn't about closure. It was about the terrifying possibility that Karen might really have changed, that maybe we could have. My phone buzzed. Dana again. Call me when you're free. XO. I stared at the screen until it went dark. She knew something was off the moment I walked in. You're doing that thing, she said, handing me a glass of Cabernet, where you pretend everything's fine, but your jaws clench tight enough to crack walnuts. I forced a sip. Long day. She sat cross-legged on the couch, her socked foot brushing my thigh. Try again. The truth perched on my tongue, sharp-beaked and dangerous. But Dana deserved better than half-lies. My ex called yesterday, I said. Dana didn't flinch, just swirled her wine. And she wants to meet, says she's been in therapy, that she regrets things. A pause. The grandfather clock in her hallway ticked 3 times before she spoke. Do you want to see her? That was the question, wasn't it? Not what Karen wanted, not what made sense. What I wanted. The man who'd spent years bending to others' needs until he forgot his own. I don't know, I admitted. Dana set down her glass with deliberate calm. Here's what I think, she said, and the steadiness in her voice surprised me. You should go. I blinked. What? If you don't, you'll always wonder, and I'm not interested in competing with a ghost. She touched my cheek, her thumb brushing the stubble. But Mike? Decide who you're doing this for. Her? You? Or the man you think you're supposed to be? I sat in the parked car long after killing the engine, watching moths batter the porch light. I wasn't choosing between them. I was choosing between the man I was and the man I wanted to be. The kitchen light was on. Karen's hairpin glinted on the passenger seat. I picked up my phone. The phone felt heavy in my hand, the glow of the screen illuminating the quiet darkness of my car. I stared at Karen's name in my recent calls, my thumb hovering over the callback button. Dana's words echoed in my head. Decide who you're doing this for. I took a slow breath and pressed call. She answered on the second ring. Mike? Her voice was cautious, like she was afraid I'd hang up. Yeah, I said. Let's meet. A pause, then softly, okay. We settled on a neutral place. A diner we used to go to after the kids' soccer games, back when things were simpler. The kind of place with sticky vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since morning. I got there early, nursing a cup of the stuff, watching the door. When she walked in, it hit me all over again, the way she still tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the faint line between her brows that deepened when she was thinking. She slid into the booth across from me, her hands wrapping around the mug the waitress set down. You look good, she said. I almost laughed. We both knew that wasn't why we were here. Karen, I started, then stopped. What was I supposed to say? Why now? What do you want from me? The questions tangled in my throat. She looked down at her coffee. I meant what I said, about therapy, about regrets. Her fingers tightened around the mug. I've been thinking a lot about us, about how we just let it die. I swallowed. We both did that. She nodded. I know, but I think I could have fought harder. The admission hung between us. For years we'd played the blame game, tallying up each other's mistakes. Now, here she was, disarming me with honesty. I exhaled. What are you asking for? Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in years they were clear. I don't know. Maybe just to know if you ever think about it too. If you ever wonder, what if? The truth was, I had wondered. 1,000 times. But sitting across from her now, with Dana's key still on my keyring and her laugh still fresh in my memory, the what if didn't feel like a door. It felt like a ghost. I think about it, I said carefully. But Karen, it's over. Really over. She didn't flinch, just nodded slowly, like she'd expected it. Yeah, she whispered. I know. We sat in silence for a long moment, the diner humming around us. Then she reached across the table, her hand brushing mine, just once, fleeting. A goodbye. I'm glad you're happy, Mike, she said, and when she stood to leave, I didn't stop her. I stayed until my coffee went cold, turning the conversation over in my head. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Dana. Can I come over? Her reply was almost immediate. Always. The porch light was on when I pulled into Dana's driveway, casting long shadows across the front steps. I sat in the car for a moment, watching the curtain twitch in the living room window before she appeared in the doorway, barefoot and wrapped in an oversized cardigan. You look like hell, she said when I reached the steps. I managed a tired smile. Feel like it too. She stepped aside to let me in, the familiar scent of her lavender candle wrapping around me. The TV was muted on some home renovation show, a half-finished crossword abandoned on the coffee table. Normal things. Real things. I sank onto the couch, rubbing my face. I saw Karen. Dana sat beside me, close but not touching. And it was final. The word tasted strange. After 22 years, you'd think an ending would feel louder, some grand crescendo of emotion. But this was just quiet. Just two people admitting what they'd both known for years. Dana studied me, her gaze steady. You okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. I think I am. She nodded, then reached for my hand, her fingers threading through mine. No grand pronouncements, no dramatic declarations, just her palm against mine, warm and solid. We sat like that for a while, the silence comfortable. Eventually, she tugged me toward the kitchen. Come on, I'll make you that awful pasta you like. I followed, watching as she rummaged through cabinets, muttering about my questionable taste in food. The ordinary rhythm of it, her teasing, the clatter of pots, the way she hummed off-key, settled something in my chest. Later, as we ate at her tiny kitchen table, she asked, Do you regret it? Seeing her? I twirled pasta around my fork, considering. Number I needed to know that I wasn't running toward something, or away from it. I met her eyes. I'm right where I want to be. Dana smiled, slow and real. Good, because I'm not sharing my dessert. The night unfolded like that. Easy, unremarkable. We did the dishes, argued about the thermostat, watched bad TV. And when I kissed her goodnight, her lips curved against mine. It didn't feel like a beginning or an ending. It just felt like coming home. Months later, I found Karen's hairpin again while packing a box of old things. The tarnish had darkened, the metal cool against my palm. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I placed it gently in the donation bin. Dana called from the other room, You better not be keeping those hideous golf trophies. I laughed, closing the box. Never. And that's the thing about second chances. Sometimes they heal you. Sometimes they just remind you why the first one failed. But if you're lucky, you'll find someone who makes the answer simple.